Don't miss Folger Theater's How Shakespeare Saved My Life, playing now through July 5th at Folger Shakespeare Library. The autobiographical solo comedy by Broadway star Jacob Ming Trent has been called a vivid, deeply personal narrative about survival, resilience, and the transformative power of language by stage and cinema. Born with a gift for poetry but rejected as unfit to play the part of a poet, Ming Trent invites us to take a deep dive into the crevices of his youth. Calling on the bard and a host of genius rappers, half-crazed preachers, and soulful poets, he takes us on a propulsive ride that reaffirms the power of language and music. Folger Theater delivers yet again, says the Washington lobbyist. Go see it, bring a friend, talk about it after. Tickets start at $20 and can be purchased online at folger.edu or by phone at 202-544-7077, Tuesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Get yours today.
Today on CityCast DC. DC's reflecting pool is not so reflective these days. It's been all over my social media feed and probably yours too. So how the heck did we get here? The Atlantic's Matt Visor is taking us back to biology class to explain why we're hearing about algae, sealant, and the uptick in law enforcement at the reflecting pool. Today's Wednesday, June 24th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I have lived in DC pretty much my whole life, and I have gone most of that time without thinking about or hearing about the reflecting pool. In fact, I would say that 99.9% of the cumulative time I've spent thinking about it has occurred in the last 2 weeks. Is that kind of how it's going for you too?
Yeah, I've been in DC for about 15 years, and it was the same. I mean, sometimes you go down and walk past it, but I've given little thought to the color of it or sort of the amount of algae potentially growing in it, which I think has been the case in the past. I just haven't thought about it.
How would you sum up the current state of the reflecting pool situation in 5 words?
An absolute mess.
Wow, that was you nailed that.
I mean, it's an evolving mess too. I mean, it's been so fascinating to watch over the last, week or two. The water color has changed. The mood down there has changed. And it's been kind of one thing after another. It's been changing colors of the algae. It's been peeling sealant from the base of it. It's been dead ducks that have been photographed down there. So it's been kind of an evolving story that has taken different turns than I think we expected.
Yeah, that is a great way to put it. And I was just reading your piece for The Atlantic called Science Has a Name for What's Plaguing the Reflecting Pool. And one thing I really appreciated is that the piece and the reporting is grounded in actual reporting, boots on the ground, speaking to experts rather than kind of internet theories or just repeating unverified claims from the administration. After talking to the people who actually understand these systems, the experts, what do you think is the biggest misconception about what is happening right now at the reflecting pool?
There's a couple misconceptions. I mean, one is I think that we should expect no algae down there. I think the scientists that I spoke to, they're not surprised by any of this. The algae grows down there. As you know, we experience hot temperatures in the summer, and you have a large, area of water. And so it's kind of a perfect scenario for algae to be growing. So I think the misconception, I think when President Trump had talked about this, he sort of suggested that, that this was going to be a beautiful blue reflecting pool, kind of like a swimming pool. And swimming pools typically don't have a lot of algae growing in them because of the chemicals in it, because you can control the situation a little bit easier. This is not that. So I think there maybe was a misconception that there would not be algae here. And it's, in fact, a perfect scenario for algae to be growing. And the president, in this project kind of made it even more so by coating the base of the pool as a dark blue, which made it hotter and easier for algae to grow.
So I'm glad that you brought that up. I chatted yesterday with a pool guy, like somebody who does professional pool maintenance, and his big takeaway was exactly what you said, that it seemed to him as a pool professional that they were sort of treating this reflecting pool, like the kinds of swimming pools that he maintains for a living.
I just so happen as like somebody that works with water on a daily basis, trying to keep water clean too. Like I actually do the opposite of what is intended to be done in the reflecting pool. I keep water sanitized and clean and swim ready. And that's completely the opposite intention of the maintenance for the reflecting pool. And so just as a pool guy, I said, well, now they're adding pool chemicals to something that's not intended to be a pool or a swimming pool. This kind of seems like such a failure because, now we're treating it like it's a swimming pool and it's not a swimming pool. And I think that's the misconception. And I clean swimming pools and yes, this is how you would clean a swimming pool. But it's a reflecting pool. And I think I think we're starting to lose grasp on what its actual intention is supposed to be.
So there you have it from a professional pool guy. That seems to sort of get at exactly what you were saying, that, Trump, I remember he was talking about how this is going to be this bright American flag blue pool. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, is that really the purpose here? And is that even something that is ever going to be possible with a reflecting pool that is not a swimming pool?
Yeah, and I don't know that it can be. Certainly improvements can be made. This is an issue that multiple administrations have struggled with. Barack Obama his administration did a major renovation down there and also did not get rid of the algae. And it didn't look crystal clear at that time either. So President Trump, as he has done in so many other issues, decided to suggest that he could do it better and prove that he can't. At least at the moment, it doesn't look, frankly, any different than it did previously at the moment. And just getting back to the pool situation, there's so much water. There's like 7 million gallons of water in this area. And so I think a lot of the people, including probably the pool guy that you talked to, were sort of like, dumping hydrogen peroxide in this is not going to be a long-term solution, which is what their first kind of instinct was in order to try to combat the algae by using hydrogen peroxide and sort of jug, these little like gallon, things that they were pouring into the water was not going to be a long-term solution. And we've seen that. It may have killed off one type of algae, but it created the conditions for another type of algae to flourish down there.
Don't miss Folger Theater's How Shakespeare Saved My Life, playing now through July 5th at Folger Shakespeare Library. The autobiographical solo comedy by Broadway star Jacob Ming Trent has been called a vivid, deeply personal narrative about survival, resilience, and the transformative power of language by stage and cinema. Born with a gift for poetry but rejected as unfit to play the part of a poet, Ming Trent invites us to take a deep dive into the crevices of his youth. Calling on the bard and a host of genius rappers, half-crazed preachers, and soulful poets, he takes us on a propulsive ride that reaffirms the power of language and music. Folger Theater delivers yet again, says the Washington lobbyist. Go see it, bring a friend, talk about it after. Tickets start at $20 and can be purchased online at folger.edu or by phone at 202-544-7077, Tuesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Get yours today.
So you've been covering this reflecting pool algae saga since it first started. For folks who might not know, how did we get to this point?
So we got to this point in, probably it goes back to March or April, when President Trump decided to oversee this project where they recoded the base of the pool as the American flag blue color that he termed it. But it really began probably over the last 2 weeks as they refilled the water. And initially it did look blue. The reflection was you could see there in the water. But it didn't take but a few days for the algae to begin to really appear and sort of grow quite rapidly. And so that's when I started going down. It's kind of on my commute in. So I would go in the morning and pass by again in the afternoon and sort of go, twice a day over the last week or so to just check and see what the latest is down there and see what we could see. And it was like kind of a unique piece of modern art where like the water colors were sort of changing bit by bit. And, you could sort of see the work of what they were doing with the chemicals, or, for a while they had these national park workers down there with what essentially is a vacuum cleaner, kind of vacuuming up algae at the base of the pool. So as they did that, the shapes and the colors kind of changed throughout the pool. And it became this kind of fascinating science experiment down there.
How did the reflecting pool used to work before all of this?
I mean, a little bit similar, but you would kind of just leave it. I don't think they were treating things with chemicals so much down there. I mean, it gets a little bit wonky, but there is a new technology down there that they are trying to utilize called a nanobubbler. Yeah, which basically kind of injects, oxygen, into the water and is meant to kill off the algae that way. So that's something new that hasn't been down there previously. The scientists that I talk to are sort of intrigued by it. It can work in certain scenarios. It's unclear if it'll work in this large of an area and this type of setting. So some of them described it to me as like a very expensive experiment, to see if it'll work. It may work, and that's something new that has not been down there and, it hasn't been sort of fully tested yet.
Okay, let's get into this because I want to talk more about what some of the experts and scientists and officials that you spoke to for your reporting have said. When we first talked about the, Trump saying he's going to paint the reflecting pool this American flag blue, I remember thinking, gee, it almost sounds like a too convenient of a self-own that the decision to do that would result in all of this algae and all of these problems. I just personally am applying my own biases to Trump and the things that he does to think that that is the reason why we have gotten to these problems with the algae. But in your piece, you said that the scientists that you talked to had said that the decision to paint the bottom that deep shade of blue did raise the water temperature and did accelerate the growth. So am I to understand this was a bit of a self-own by the administration here?
I think all of these scientists kind of knew that this was going to happen, that it was the design of it, the location of it. It was almost set up to be a hotbed for algae to be growing down there. I guess one thing to point out is the people that I talked to had not been down there to measure the temperature of it. And there's been some scientists that I've talked to who have applied for permits to get down there and do deeper scientific work to figure out what's going on. Those permits have not yet been granted by the National Park Service. The working premise that they all have is that you darken a color and it's going to absorb the sun and it's going to make that area hotter, which heat is what makes algae grow. And so, it creates an environment that is more hospitable to algae by doing this project the way that the president wanted to do it.
I was a little troubled from your reporting reading that we actually don't have any hard and fast answers on whether or not the algae is safe. I've really been treating this as an oh brother kind of story, but then I thought, there is a safety and an environmental safety and a transparency angle here. And the fact that we're not getting those questions answered seems bad. You collected your own samples of water. You sent them to UNC. There the scientists are able to analyze the water with microscopes and look at it. What did they tell you about what's happening in the water at the reflecting pool?
Yeah, so I mean, this came about in part for, as you mentioned, I was asking national park workers down there, the Department of Interior, have you guys tested the water? Is this toxic? In part because I was getting a lot of messages from researchers and readers and scientists sort of saying, based off of the photos, it looked awfully like a toxic kind of algae. So I went down and collected a couple of different samples, and we had them same day delivered so that they wouldn't degrade over time or heat up, or we wouldn't be influencing it. So they arrived with two different researchers, and they both came to the same conclusion, which is that it is a green algae called Scinadesmus, is the genus of algae. And green algae is not typically toxic. It was at a high level of algae, but it's not known to be toxic. Their sort of working theory was that there was a previous bloom down there that was the more a blue-green algae that can be toxic, and that the hydrogen peroxide may have done its work to kill off some of that algae. But that created the conditions for this other algae to flourish down there, because it was no longer competing for nutrients with the blue-green algae that had been there previously. They did not think that this latest algae, at least as of Thursday when we collected the sample, was a toxic one. But we should say that toxic algae typically, this is not the time of year when it's most likely. That's likelier in July and maybe early August. So these scientists were sort of warning, even though this snapshot didn't find a toxic algae, like beware for the conditions as things get hotter down there.
I don't know if this is something that you can speak to, but I have seen these stories and really sad images of the dead ducks, baby ducks floating in the water. Do we have any idea what's going on there?
Those photos emerged kind of over the weekend, which was after we did our testing. So it's unclear, I think. I mean, there's been hydrogen peroxide poured in the water. I took samples from different parts of the pool, but it's a big reflecting pool, so there could be different types of algae in different areas of the pool that the ducks could have been consuming. But I mean, there's lots of ducks down there, and there's still ducks in the pool who are drinking this water and swimming around in it.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a bit. I just from following your reporting and your work on social media, it does seem like you're down there a lot. And you alluded to this earlier, that the vibe at the reflecting pool has really changed. When I was there, it almost kind of seemed like a media circus. There was lots of reporters. I had never experienced it quite like that. Paint me a picture of what you've seen and experienced going down there so often in the last few weeks and how it's changed.
I think early on, there was kind of almost a festive atmosphere. I mean, people were sort of curious and looking, and, it varied. I mean, one woman I talked to was more of a Trump supporter, and she was disappointed at the way it looked, but was also hopeful that the National Park Service workers would be able to do the work and reduce the algae, and that in time for the July 4th celebration, it would be blue, an American flag blue. And other people were down there sort of just, laughing at the hubris of the president and, kind of making fun of his project and how badly it has turned out. And then late last week, when the sealant started to come loose, I think there was a different atmosphere where people were down there and, some putting their hands in the water to sort of feel the way that the sealant felt. A cyclist rode by me and at one point had said that he was hoping to find a piece because it was like a piece of the Berlin Wall, a piece of history. That too was kind of a light atmosphere. But that quickly changed over the weekend. And yesterday when I was down there, there was just a heavy law enforcement presence where people are being issued citations or even arrested for putting their hands in the water or feeling the sealant that's coming loose. It had a slightly different feel, I think, more recently, just given, National Park Police down there, police officers on horseback. They're all kind of carefully monitoring whatever anybody's doing as they are on the edges of the reflecting pool.
I want to talk about this because Jeanine Pirro said, anybody who is vandalizing the reflecting pool, we are going to prosecute, we are going to charge. And I don't know if this is something that you can speak to, but if I understand that area is pretty heavily surveilled, like under near constant surveillance, that's not really new. If there were indeed vandals compromising the pool, I feel like we would have evidence of that. And then I saw, this image of National Guard with what looked like security cameras on the back of a truck yesterday. And I thought, for a spot that is already under pretty deep surveillance, it does seem strange to me that we're bumping up that surveillance for vandals where I'm not there 24/7. I have a difficult time believing that there are, in fact, vandals compromising the reflecting pool, and that is why it's having these problems.
You can see the sealant having kind of broken loose and coming loose. Like there's no indication that is vandalism. It's more that the sealant was either not installed properly or maybe this sealing system is not meant for that area. So it seems more like potentially a contractor issue or, needing to be fixed rather than somebody sabotaging this. We can't get into the center of the pool. We don't know if something was done before water was put in there. There's other scenarios that I think you could imagine. But based on what we currently know, it does not, seem like vandalism. It seems more like peeling sealant on the bottom of the reflecting pool and people being curious about what that is and dipping their hands in to check it out. But more than those are the people who are causing the sealant to come loose by somehow putting their hand in there and trying to rip it and cause the damage themselves.
So that is exactly my point. This is when the story, which heretofore I'd sort of been following as a black eye for the administration. This administration can't do anything right. Kind of following it from almost like a jokey perspective. But people are being arrested. They're being detained. They're being given citations for what, in all honesty, sounds like perhaps being curious, dipping their hand in the water. And these big national figures are saying, oh, we're going to prosecute them. We're going to charge them with vandalism. And that, to me, is what pushes this story from a kind of almost jokey curiosity or something to sort of an absurdity of the administration to a much more troubling story that people are being detained, given citations and arrested for this sort of perhaps imaginary vandalism to explain away what is a contractor issue or just an environmental issue so that it doesn't embarrass this president.
Yeah, and absent affirmative evidence to the contrary, that's what it does seem like. I mean, the president, and we've asked the administration, are there police records? Is there actual vandalism? Do you guys have evidence that somebody has gone in? And the president yesterday suggested there's a 300-foot gash that's been cut with a violent knife in the reflecting pool. None of that is visible from the edge, so unless somebody got in there before the water was put in or somehow snuck in to make that, at the moment, we don't have evidence of the things that the president and the administration has been claiming. I mean, this is a very public area. It's owned by the public. It's federal property. It's federal land. It's, our tax dollars are the ones that paid for this project. And, this is where Martin Luther King Jr. gave his speech. That's where Vietnam protests took place. There are images of people in the water in administrations past. So it's taken a different turn to where people are being arrested for, dipping a hand into water that is, is a public space. It's not to say people can go and vandalize it, but it is to say that this is one of the, most iconic areas of American history to where people, should have access to being able to go down there and not feel afraid of being detained by law enforcement.
I think it really has become this symbol of the way folks in DC are feeling right now, that these things that used to be, you could almost sort of take them for granted as just nice things to have in the background of life in DC are now so policed and so politicized. And it's not just this simple, nice thing in the backdrop of life in the district anymore.
Yeah, it's taken on a different feel, I think, at the moment. And even over the last week, I think it started as kind of a jokey kind of frivolity down there that's turned into more of a slightly more threatening environment where you don't want to accidentally slip and fall into the pool and be arrested for, claims of vandalism.
I will say one question I had when Pirro was talking about how she's going to, bring charges against anybody who is messing around with the fountain. I can't help but think back to when the National Guard was first posted up in D.C. Remember the sandwich guy? And how after all that bloviating, they weren't able to make charges stick because a jury of this guy's peers from the district would not play ball with this plan that they had to convict. I wonder, people who have been given citations or arrested for messing around with the fountain, even if that's just like putting a hand in, is the administration going to find themselves with a sandwich guy 2.0 where a jury is not going to, be moved by what they say happened?
Well, the closest at the moment is a cyclist who was down there, over the weekend, who turns out was competing in the Olympics as a kayaker and was down there after a 50-mile bike ride, was curious, put his hand in the water to touch it, and was then arrested and detained for several hours. Now there's charges against him, which presumably he's going to fight, so he is, at least at the moment, the closest thing we have to the sandwich guy is the biker guy, I think.
You noted that this has kind of become an ink blot test regarding the Trump administration and the city. What did you mean by that?
I think that just the way that some people have quickly, as soon as algae is down there was a Fox News segment where it was kind of almost questioning whether this is green. And, depending on your political persuasions, you may think it's green or blue. And it sort of was a strange moment where it's like, it is clearly green. And can we not agree that this is green water and it's green because of algae? Whereas I think if you're inclined to support the president, you're trying to find a reason why it either wasn't green or why some, outside forces were making it green and not just nature, So I think there was kind of a moment where it's like, depending on your politics, depends on how you view the reflecting pool.
Okay, so we've kind of covered a lot of ground here. Level with me. We've got this deadline of July 4th. Can this be fixed? Will this be fixed by July 4th? Are we going to be seeing these crystal blue reflecting pool waters that Trump has sort of promised that we would see? What do you think?
I think probably no. I think now they're talking about draining the water, repatching and resealing some of those spots, and then refilling the water. And maybe if you refill the water on like July 2nd or 3rd, maybe you get, the same way we had a day or two of kind of blue water. The scientists that I've talked to don't think that this time of year you're gonna get a crystal clear bit of water down there. The algae, will grow back.
Well, we'll see who knows more about this, the scientists that you spoke to or Donald Trump. Matt, I guess I'll see you down there on the 4th and we'll find out together.
We'll see, yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
And we've got some neighborhood shout-outs. Ben F. recommends one of my favorite spots in the city, Lucy Bar, a fun, casual neighborhood bar and restaurant on 14th. Good Italian food, wine and cocktails, and al fresco seating. Quick note, they also have live jazz. And Jeff C. says the gift shop at the Tudor Place Historic Home in Georgetown sells the best honey produced by their own resident bees. There is a charge to tour the home, but the gift shop and garden are free to enter and wander. And if you want to shout out your favorite place, just become a CityCast member. Head to membership.citycast.fm and sign up today. That is all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. And become a member to support our work. You can do that at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you soon.